Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Now, Mosul. Interestingly enough, you heard on the news there Rebecca Foster talking about the United Nations, claiming again that the Assad government has committed war crimes. At the same time, the United States is murdering anything that moves in Mosul. Anything that moves in the Iraqi city of Mosul. Light them up! Light them up! That's what they say, these fucking cowards in their helicopters. Light them up! Doesn't matter if it's a fucking child, a woman, a shepherd. Just kill them. Hundreds of people being killed a day in Mosul. And the US news network's full of the latest alleged atrocity by the bastard Bashar. Unbelievable. Airstrikes targeting Islamic State, allegedly, are killing civilians like it's going out of style in Mosul. Here's Chris Woods from the Air Wars Project. What is the Air Wars Project? Well, it monitors civilian casualties of Western-led coalition bombing raids. Chris Woods speaking today with RT.
Since the assault first on East Mosul and then West Mosul began, we have seen just a remarkable change at Mosul, moving from tens of civilians reported killed to hundreds reported killed every week now by coalition airstrikes. We're seeing worse numbers now in Mosul than we did during Aleppo. 300 civilians died in just two neighborhoods of Mosul in a 24-hour period as a result of airstrikes. We didn't see that level of death in Aleppo, yet we did during the final stages of Aleppo. In fact, all through the Aleppo siege, we saw significant international media coverage. So why is there this difference? Why does international media not want to engage on civilian casualties in Mosul?
Because that same media is owned by the same military-industrial complex supplying the planes and the pilots to bomb Mosul into oblivion. Very little coverage of this. It's just another genocide by the US Army. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss, as Paul Craig Roberts said last night. It's unimaginable. And we're so desensitized to this, does it matter anyway? You know, does anybody, even people who listen to programs like this, do they even spare a thought and wonder what it might be like? I wonder what it might be like to be running from your house as the agents of a tyrannical superpower rain hellfire and damnation down on you and your children in the name of lies. The former London Mayor Ken Livingstone was talking with RT today. Now, he was brought on to talk about the fact that there is no coverage of the slaughter in Mosul. At least no coverage on British television anyway. But while he was on RT, he took the time to remind us, as if we needed reminding, that radical Islamists are funded by so-called Western democracies.
Well, I think that part of the problem with all of this is that you've got to go back to the 1980s when America started funding Muslim fundamentalist groups. The Saudis were funding the most extreme, like Al-Qaeda and so on. And the West is in denial about Islamist terrorism, has its origins going right back to the 1980s. And there were instances where President Carter was briefed by the CIA in 1979 saying, if we give arms to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, Russia will have to intervene to actually stop that, and it will create Russia's Vietnam. An absolute tragedy. But when Carter took the decision to do that, it never occurred to him he was lighting the fuse that would lead to 9/11. And the West has got to come to terms with the fact that we funded the creation of Islamist fundamentalism and the terror that has come from that. And we've got to make sure we stop. And that means pressure on Saudi Arabia, which remains the principal funder of extremist terrorist groups in the Muslim world.
You know, Ken, you're an idealist. Nobody is going to persuade anybody to stop arming radical Islamists. And of course, radical Islam doesn't really exist outside of Saudi Wahhabism. Outside of that interpretation of Islam, there is no radical Islam. Okay? But he's right, of course, Livingston. He's absolutely right. We've just got to stop arming these people, he said. Well, yeah. Now, today, British media, unsurprisingly, you won't be surprised, is dominated by the triggering of Article 50. Well, it hasn't been triggered yet, but it's imminent, because MPs rejected amendments. I told you this last night. MPs rejected amendments by the Lords to A, guarantee the rights of EU citizens, and B, give MPs a meaningful vote on whatever is agreed between the government and Brussels at the end of said negotiations. So May will trigger Article 50 at the end of the month, May being Theresa May. Had a smile today, a bit of a giggle. Nobody told Jeremy Corbyn, it would appear, what happened last night.
All the signs are that we have a complacent government. Complacent with our economy, complacent with people's rights, and complacent about the future of this country. I urge the Prime Minister to listen to the collective wisdom of this Parliament and to give this House the full opportunity to scrutinise the Article 50 deal with a meaningful final vote. The people's representatives, Mr. Speaker, deserve better than take it or leave it.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? Where was Corbyn yesterday? The MPs said no to the Lords' recommended amendment to the bill. No to a meaningful vote by MPs at the end of the negotiation phase. Where the hell was Corbyn? Now, the Scottish National Party and Nicola Sturgeon announced yesterday, as you know by now, that they want a second referendum on Scotland's place in the UK, because most Scots voted to stay in the European Union during the referendum on the 23rd. This is going to start getting confusing, this. Maybe it is. Maybe for me, maybe not. Now, yesterday we cried madness, independence from the Crown, but then handing your sovereignty to Brussels is total madness. Now, Jim Stillars is a former deputy leader of the Scottish National Party. Jim agrees with you and I.
You have to look at what the SNP leadership is saying. They want to stay within the single market of the European Union, and if they can, become a full member of the European Union. I voted leave. I don't want to be a member of the European Union. It's run by an unelected elite. If you go out into the streets of the UK, ask people to name the 28 commissioners who run the lives of people in the European Union, and they won't be able to tell you one except perhaps Juncker, the President. And they're the folk who run us. That's why I voted leave. I want a proper democracy.
But isn't Nicola Sturgeon...
The people are accountable to me, and they're not accountable. So the SNP are actually asking for the impossible from someone like me to vote for independence and then give it all away back to the European Union.
Exactly, Jim. Exactly. We'll leave that one alone, because I detect and I have the power of remote viewing. And right now I am in every one of your living rooms and your cars, and I detect Brexit fatigue. I detect a sense of totally pissed offedness about it. So we'll leave Brexit for now, for this programme anyway. Now, the European Court of Justice said today that workplace bans on the wearing of any political, philosophical or religious signs like headscarves are not direct discrimination. Workplace bans on headscarves or any political, philosophical or religious sign isn't direct discrimination. That's from the European Court of Justice. But the ban must be based on internal company rules, requiring all employees to dress neutrally. The court said it cannot be based on the wishes of a customer. Keep that in mind now. Keep that in mind. It cannot be based on the wishes of a customer. This is the European Court of Justice's first ruling on the wearing of headscarves at work. The ruling was prompted by the case of a receptionist fired for wearing a headscarf to work at the security company G4S in Belgium. To tell you more about the two cases that prompted the ruling, here is Sky News with this brief explanation of those cases.
Two women, both Muslims, both wanted to wear headscarves. The first one, February 2006, here in France, a woman, Samira Ashbita, was working for the Belgian wing of the well-known firm G4S. She was a receptionist for them. She wanted to wear a headscarf, was told by the company she couldn't, and as a result she was dismissed. Now, the company has what's known as a neutral dress code policy. It was an unwritten policy, but everyone in the firm knew about it. She took the company to court here in Belgium. They referred it up to the European Court of Justice, who have ruled on that. That's the first case. The second in France, a separate company which didn't, crucially, have a neutral dress code policy, but had a customer who didn't like the fact that that customer was having to deal with someone who wore a headscarf. That person was dismissed.
That person was dismissed. A customer didn't like being served by a woman with a headscarf. Now, the European Court of Justice said that this shouldn't be based on the wishes of a customer, but saw that poor woman with the headscarf, by the sounds of it, no recourse or recompense for her. This is madness, this, isn't it? I mean, please. Madness. And you know what? The Chuckle Brothers at the Trump Nightly News Network in Austin, Texas, think this is great. Not just them, but hypocrites like them. They scream about the PC brigade and personal sovereignty and being told what to do by the state. Political correctness is terrible, but they can't support these women now, because these days they're telling their redneck audiences that Islam is what's wrong with the world. Madness. I mean, the whole body dress, the hijab, the burqa, the entire facial covering. I could understand somebody saying, I'd rather see your face if I'm going to do business with you. I can understand that, and we can debate that all day long. Listen, I've got a serious problem with that side of Islam anyway. With men telling their women they can't look at a man, they can't speak with him, they can't shake his hand. I had this in Spain some years ago with the future Mrs. Allen. We met a man and a woman. She had the full dress. Our dog Jazz is an incredible... She's incredibly gifted when it comes to doing weird tricks and jumping great distances into the air and catching things. And this couple came up to see the dog and they were, oh, your dog is amazing. And I shook hands with the man when they left, went to shake her hand because I'm an idiot. And, well, he wasn't happy and he shook his hand very vigorously. And I said, all right, fair enough. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. I don't like any of that. But a woman wearing a scarf only on her head, what is the bloody problem with that? It is madness. That level of interference in people's lives. We know what it's about. I'm not going to labour the point. Now, Sky News brought Julia Hartley-Brewer on. Julia Hartley-Brewer is a mouth for hire. A conservative radio host. I think she works for Talk Radio. All so predictable, Julia.
Well, I just think it's common sense. I mean, I'm an atheist, but I don't feel the need to go to work every single day with a copy of Darwin's Origin of Species sitting on my head. I think it's quite bizarre. Work is work, religion is religion. Now, obviously, with the issue of the headscarf, that is a more difficult decision for Muslim women in particular, where the part of Islam is, of course, that it's all day, every day. It's not something you do at synagogue on a Saturday morning or in a Christian church on a Sunday morning, and so it does have more impact than, say, a Christian, for instance, wearing a cross on a chain. But I, for one, I don't want people coming into work telling me all about their religion, and I'm not entirely sure why people feel the need to.
What a load of nonsense. I've worked in this city way back when I was first in this city. When I was at university at Salford, I did a couple of weekend jobs and I worked with women with an Asian background, women whom would have been Muslims, and they had the scarf on. You could see their faces. We had no different a relationship with those women than we did with any of our other colleagues, and I never remember anybody trying to inflict their religious beliefs on me. What bollocks. Can you give me an example of any time you've worked anywhere and somebody, whether it be a Christian, whether it be a Sikh, whether it be a Jewish man or woman, whether it be Muslim, decided to interrupt your day to start telling you about their religion? What bollocks. I worked with a guy called Imran Anwar from Rochdale, Pakistani, second, third generation in the UK. Lovely guy. I would ask him questions occasionally about his eating habits and about halal butchery and stuff like that out of curiosity, but at no time did Imran or any of his Pakistani mates ever frown on me having a pint of Guinness, ever make a comment on anything that I was doing or not doing. It is utter bollocks. It's about how much they can get away with. And it's also about divide and conquer. These are the issues that are filling people's minds. Whether a woman should be allowed to wear a scarf or not, ludicrous, she should wear what she wants. But while our talk radio programs are full of this stuff, men, women and children from the Islamic world are being blown into smithereens. And nobody's talking about that today.